This is Telltale Guys, Episode 4, Rock Apes of Vietnam.
What's your ETA? We'll be there in 2 minutes. Come on, we have lives to save here.
Hey everyone, this is Telltale Guys. Welcome back. This is episode 4. My name is Zane and I'm with Josh, and we are here to bring you more stories, legends, and lore. First of all, Josh, how you doing?
Doing fantastic. We're recording this on a Friday. So Friday's always a fun day for me. Got to get down Friday, right?
Yeah. How was your week?
It's kind of a slog like it always is, but not as bad as some weeks. And so that's always a plus. How about you?
It's pretty good. Started off really good actually on Sunday, if you count Sundays at the start as the start of the weeks. But went to a Braves game and I have my Braves mug, so I'm in a good
Oh,
mood.
did they
So
win?
they did.
All right.
That was good. Um, Back in the day when Josh and I used to work together and the Braves had not won anything in a long time, Josh would always give me so much just hate, can we
That,
say?
that doesn't sound
And
like me.
and and I all I could do was accept it because the Braves weren't doing anything. But then when we finally departed our ways in our working lives, Braves finally won their championship in 2021. So it just took me to leave. So
Yeah.
uh, Josh has nothing to say now. Well,
No, I'm not a big stickball fan, as they say. I don't really have a team. I
mhm,
don't follow it, but I grew up playing soccer myself. But
mhm.
did you play baseball or soccer or anything growing up?
I played baseball. Soccer
Okay.
was not my thing, although I could see how it would be really fun if you kind of understand like the all the different plays. It's kind of the grace of it. It is a beautiful game. I will say that, and I'll get into it when it's, you know, during the Olympics or during the World Cup and all
Oh
that.
yeah, fun stuff.
Josh was telling me more about all the different European leagues and how it can get pretty complicated. But
It is that it's hard to follow with all their stuff, but not as exciting for some people, I guess. With it's kind of slower pace watching it, but baseball is too. So yeah, I
yeah,
guess you just got to learn the nuances to enjoy it.
but speaking of kind of international sports, that kind of like segues in a way. I'm just going to make it work. On an international theme is our theme for today, which is takes place in Vietnam during the
Yes,
Vietnam War. Josh,
that
basically,
that is
um,
correct. We're
I'll let you
tra-
go into it.
okay, yeah, sure. Traveling to Vietnam, covering the Rock Apes. So
Interesting.
it's kind of like a Bigfoot type creature. I think I might have been inspired a little bit from a
Yes, last week's
previous
episode.
episode.
Yeah.
I mentioned the Congo mystery ape there. I'm even wearing my Bigfoot shirt, Dapper Bigfoot. I don't know if you can
Oh,
see it.
dang, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
Where did
It's
you get that from? Online or some?
Evelyn, my wife, got it for me, so I'm not sure where she got it, but it's a mystery, I guess, much like today's episode
Yeah.
with these creatures. So let me do this. I'm going to add
Oh,
the
wow.
my slides here for those of you just listening. You're going to miss out, so you're going to have to check us out on YouTube to see the
Right.
images here. But this would be a representation of one of the rock apes. But yes, so this is going to be around in Vietnam is when a lot of these stories started coming out, right? Vietnam when the U.S. troops got involved there. So we're talking about 1965, 1973, that time frame there. That's when the U.S. troops were heavily involved in the jungles, right? So let's imagine this. I'm going to set a scene for you, Zane, and
Sounds good.
listeners. Vietnam, a jungled country on the other side of the planet. That was the backdrop of the Vietnam War. Hot, tropical. It's a world apart from what the U.S. troops are used to, right?
Mhm.
So imagine you're out on patrol, Zane, in a dense undergrowth, and you're on the lookout for Viet Cong, the enemy, right?
Mhm.
It's a sweltering 86 degrees with a humidity to match. You've been in the bush for 3 days now, dirty, tired, hungry, on alert. You hear a noise. Immediately, Your 6-man squad freezes and tenses. Was it the enemy setting an ambush for you? A few seconds pass. Then a rock comes flying in, lands near your feet. You look in the direction of where it came from, and a few yards away, you see it. 6-foot tall, hairy creature. He gazes at you with deep set eyes, a heavy brow ridge, long, muscular arms, and makes it apparent that what you're looking at isn't the Viet Cong. It's an ape, and it's not alone. Then you see another and another. Soon you're outnumbered by about 10 reddish brown haired beasts angrily throwing stones in your direction. Their actions grow increasingly aggressive as they don't appreciate your presence in their area. As they march close, their immense size and smell become even more apparent. Your squad signals to immediately move away from this location, and you begin to fire your M16 in the area of thick jungle these creatures are moving through. You
Jeez.
intend to keep them at bay with warning shots, but if you hit one, you don't care. You just want to get out of there as fast as you can. So that's kind of like the scenarios, kind of a generalized scenario picture of what these troops are going through when they encounter these rock apes.
Wow.
Probably
Is-
a lot more tense than our breaks in there, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Was
So
it was this based on like any type of transcripts from various soldiers or
that
anything?
particular one, no, that's just kind of a summary of all these stories. There's plenty of stories out there on the web that are of veterans talking about,
Yeah.
what they saw in these creatures. So I kind of summarized them all into one type of thing there. But I do have some actual accounts here of veterans telling their stories of what they went through. So I'm going to play a couple here now. Now these come from a website, uh, Texas Cryptid Hunter,
Oh,
and we'll
cool.
put a link in the notes there for you. But what these are emails that were sent to them, and they shared them. They might be a little bit unverified, but they're stories that were sent in, just letting them know, hey, this is what I saw. I actually saw these things. So let me play the first one here for everybody. And these are read by Zane and ourselves reenacting these emails as we were the veterans ourselves. So these aren't actually in their own words. Let's see. I'll turn this up a little bit.
In '69, I spent my whole tour in the bush, Iron Triangle. One night, in ambush position, I had last guard duty before dawn. We were positioned on the outside edge of a tree line. About 15 minutes into my watch, I heard loud movement coming from a ways in the trees. As they got closer, I determined it to be a troop of monkeys. But as they got closer, these were really big monkeys. They started making loud noises like they were yelling and just tearing up the jungle. As the twilight became brighter, I could see trees being shook. Big trees that no humans would be able to shake. I had a starlight scope mounted on my 16, but was never able to get a glimpse of what they were. There was so much racket going on, I wondered why the noise didn't wake up any of the other guys. They kept getting closer. I wondered if they knew we were there, maybe smelt us. But they were there, so close I took the safety off the daisy chain claymores and was on the edge of blowing them when all of a sudden they just quit. It was lighter now and I would have been able to see them, but they just vanished back into the jungle. They were so quiet, it was eerie. One thing for sure, if they got hold of a human, I'm sure he would have been shredded. I've always thought about what if they got just a little bit closer. How many would I have killed? Because I was certainly loaded for bear.
All right, so that's the first story.
Well, I was captured immediately by my dulcet tones there.
Is Batman in Vietnam?
Or was I heavily inspired by Robert Downey from Tropic Thunder? I don't know.
Yeah, either way. It's
That was
perfect.
good. The background noise is really good, Josh. That was really good.
Oh yeah, it's like I was actually in Vietnam. No, I
Yeah,
wasn't. Yeah, so that story, very interesting.
Yeah.
especially when reproduced with the sound effects there. So let me. That was from a Marine Corps vet, and obviously a 1969 is when that one occurred. So let me go on to the next one, and then we can talk about them a little bit more.
Sure.
So here's the second one. Rock apes are a real thing. I saw a band of them on Charlie Ridge in Quang Nam Province in the spring of 1970. It was nightfall, and I saw them through a starlight scope. 10, 15 of them headed away from us up a steep incline. They weren't VC because they walked as a pack side by side in the jungle and not in a military-type line. They all looked to be very broad-bodied and up to 5 feet tall.
Ugh.
All right, and that's all on that one. Very short, but again, these are emails that were sent in, kind of just recapping their stories. That was from another Marine Corps veteran as well. Also, a very grizzled voice on that individual.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Just because you're in the Marines and maybe
Yes.
you know a little bit more about this, did we only send in Marines into the jungles of Nam, or was it soldiers too?
Yeah, it was
Like,
soldiers too.
like deep in the jungles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Marines and Army. So I mean, you have a mix of both of them. Just incidentally, the stories I have are from Marines mostly, just because it did have a large presence there,
Yeah.
and especially in this area. And I'll show this in a little bit about the area that it's happening in. But let me play this third one here.
Yeah.
I spent my whole tour in the bush in Vietnam. Have seen them both alive and dead. Only thing I can say, I never seen them attack anyone. Had to kill one coming into lines one night. Never thought much about them other than that they were apes. Yes, they did walk upright, about 4.5 to 5 feet tall. Saw them mostly around the rock pile. Heard a lot of different story about them in Nam. Like the throwing of rocks, but never seen that myself. In my unit, I would say that over 3/4 of the guys have seen them. As much as Marines smell, they were worse.
All right, that's that one. I can verify Marines smell pretty bad, especially when in the bush for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's from another Marine veteran. So that's 3 of them there. Let me, before I get to these slides here, let me just really quickly here. So this slide here, what I'm showing is it's kind of like how the military patrols. So when they're talking about going out on patrols here, they're going in squads. So like small 6 to 10 men type of units going out there looking for the enemy is what they're doing. So there's a lot of them out there because we send a lot of troops out there, and they're all spread out in the jungle. So you got these little groups of 6, 7, 8 people out there doing their thing in the jungle. So it's kind of small, and that's probably why they're encountering these creatures. They're not like a big force out there scaring everything away. So
Not
this is
not too loud. I guess they can kind of
yeah.
sneak around. Maybe not
Yeah.
necessarily on purpose, but they just kind of stumble into these creatures.
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole point. I mean, they're out there looking for the enemy. They're not trying to be noisy, so they're just being as small a footprint as possible, which is why they're, coming up on these animals and stuff like that, allegedly. So that's just what this shows. So you have your squad, your smallest one, and then 3 to 4 squads make a platoon, and the platoon, 3 to 4 of those make up a company or a battery, and so on and so on. It goes up the chain. But that's what you're looking at in Vietnam. So I'll go back here to where is this happening now? So a lot of these sightings and reports you'll see, they're coming from this area in Vietnam. And I'll probably like butcher every Vietnamese pronunciation in
This is going
here.
to be one of the harder pronunciations, I'm sure, that we're going to
Yeah.
go into in this show.
Well, lucky for us, they kind of have American names too.
Oh.
That being the Rock Pile and Monkey Mountain. So this is Monkey Mountain, right? And what we'll see here, I'll go ahead and I got a couple of slides of Monkey Mountain. This was a military outpost built on top of it. So
And what
that's
we're
why,
seeing here is like, black and white bird's eye view photos of this old towns and bases basically for the audience that's listening in.
yeah. So it's very remote, especially in this time frame of Vietnam. It's so much jungle there. It's just very inaccessible. And the places that are, you have your military posts, and then just it's surrounded by jungles. And then that's where they go out and patrol. But this particular Monkey Mountain, here's another view, an old view here from the 70s, colorized, of a service member. This was, I think there was like a plane was shot down or something, so he's posing with the wing of the plane over. But you could see this particular mountain. It's on the coast, right? So Vietnam, lots of mountains and hills right up to the ocean, right? This kind of gives you a better idea of where it's located. Right there. This is the see this Son Tra? That's Monkey Mountain. That's what it's called. It's right near a peninsula, kind of over into the water there. But this area here, this is where they were seeing a lot of these rock ape sightings, on this little mountain forest peninsula. And of course, the further you go inland, even more jungles. This is kind of I think this is a more modern picture here of the mountain. It's built up a little bit, has some temples and shrines, but it's beautiful. I mean, it's very idyllic with its water and the beaches there, just right hugging the coastline and the forest mountains there.
Yeah, it looks nice, but I can't imagine all the horror that our service members had to experience in
Oh
those.
yeah, especially in under the fog of war. Yeah, it's not as nice now, but or
Yeah,
back then, but now great. Um, so here, this right here, Zane. This is a picture of the rock piles, what they called it, and it's basically just this lone rocky outcrop, kind of out there in the middle of Vietnam, surrounded by some plains and jungles just all around. But it's very very isolated, and it's hard to get to. I mean, they had to fly in troops on helicopters to get there back in the day, and even now I think it's fairly hard to get to. But it's this lone rock, as I said, but it made a really good observation post, right? So that's why the military was around this particular formation as well. They used it, they climbed up here, they could see all around, see movements, and kind of get a good idea of what's going on. Incidentally, I would imagine that's probably why it would attract a creature maybe like a rock ape too. They could climb up here, kind of scope out the territory. I don't know how much they think that way, but that would make sense to me. That's why it attracts things to it because it's just out there by itself.
right.
Um, Now, this particular um, um, structure, I guess you can say. I mean, it's basically a mountain, but I think it's about 750 feet tall. So it's not like too big. Fairly easy to climb up to.
Yeah, it looks bigger than I guess it actually is, just from this picture. But yeah,
This is also kind of gives you an idea of where it was located, right? So back during the war, this kind of hard to explain, but there was a demilitarized zone, kind of like North and South Korea, separating North and South Vietnam. So you can see here, Zane, the rock pile, kind of like in the middle there of this picture.
right.
See, it says rock pile. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I
Uh,
see it.
yeah. You can see it's there, and then all these are hills and other little mountains and stuff. This is all forested. So, but right near where there's like a no-go zone, right? So it's very remote, very isolated, just out there, um, kind of hard to get to. This next picture kind of shows you um, between the sightings. So you had them on Monkey Mountain down there in the south, right near the coast, and then the rock pile further up north and a little bit more inland, but still kind of same kind of terrain. They're similar, even though they're kind of in different locations. You have rocky outcrops covered in forests and mountains, and what is it, about 200 kilometers away, it says, from each other. So they were seeing these creatures, the reports, throughout the whole country, all over the place. So it wasn't just those
Wow.
two locations, just all throughout. That just kind of gives you how big a territory it's covering, right?
Uh-huh.
I'll get to that one later. Okay, so but it's not just the U.S. troops that are seeing these things, right? You would think, oh, they're just all, under a lot of stress from all the patrolling and the
Right.
danger around them. They're just kind of hallucinating and making things up. I think drug use was also fairly prevalent, or at least like marijuana was
Yeah.
in Vietnam. But that doesn't really give you like a hallucination, right? It's
No.
not like people are having mass hallucinations from it. So the only other things, I guess, around that time frame that you could kind of attribute it to would maybe be like something like, I don't know, LSD or something like that. But again, that wasn't really a prevalent or used in Vietnam. So it was
Yeah, I
mostly
feel
just
like that would be hard to get, but maybe like
yeah.
the stress or exhaustion and
Mhm.
I know I know that so many different service members suffered from diseases during these deployments or they got infections, all sorts of things that could have led to possible hallucination. But I don't know if you're encountering animal like ape like creatures. I don't know if that's going to be a hallucination. It sounds like it could be very real.
Yeah, and it's definitely like the types of guys that are out here in the jungle too. Like these are serious gentlemen. They're out there tasked with, you know, engaging the enemy and killing them. They're not out here trying to make up fancy or, frivolous stories about Bigfoot type creatures that they're encountering. Like, why would they? And this is in the 70s too. So it's not like it was not like today where it's much more accepted to talk about these things and kind of share experiences. Back then, you didn't really talk about it
Right.
and you didn't want to be seen as crazy, especially, in the military and stuff like that. You'll get like kicked out and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So, that wasn't something. They're not trying to pull people's legs with these stories.
Right. It was all
Um,
about just getting the mission done, and
right.
that was basically it.
Yeah, they're not like shooting TikTok dance videos in the jungle. They're not silly. They're serious people, right?
Right. And this was a
Um,
serious war, so
exactly, exactly. So, but it wasn't just the U.S. troops that were seeing them too, because actually the Vietnamese people were seeing them as well, like their troops, the Viet Cong and the people fighting in the forest. They were having these sightings. So much, in fact, Zane, that the Communist Party from North Vietnam now, they sent investigators to look into it because of all the reports that they were hearing from it. So in 1974, they sent a professor, Vo Qui, I think. Uh, yeah, Professor Vo Qui, Professor Huang Zong Chen, and Lei Vu Koyand. I'm
you
sure I nailed it.
got
um, so they sent them kind of out on an expedition to go look for something, right? But they couldn't really find any physical evidence. They no bodies, even though there's been reports of that, like I read earlier, or we showed earlier with the Marine shot a body of one of these things and left it there. Right? There's no physical evidence, but they did find some footprints. Right? And right here's a cast of one of the footprints that were found in the jungle by one of these expeditions from the Communist Party.
kind of
It
similar to what you see with the Bigfoot type casts and all that. Though this kind of seems smaller. And obviously from the descriptions of the height, that would make sense.
Yeah, and yeah, you're on the right track here. They are wider than a human foot,
Okay.
and larger than the typical, ape, like a gorilla or whatever. Um, so that's kind of like the size you're talking about, not as big as Bigfoot's. And in fact, here is a comparison of one of these creatures' footprints on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side, these are cast from Bigfoot
Oh
prints that
wow.
have been found in North America, right? And these are all from the Idaho State University. So we'll put a link to that as well in the notes for you guys to check out yourself. They have a very detailed report on these particular expeditions and the casts that were found
What's
there. So
interesting about
yeah.
these is like the digits, like the toe digits are spread out wider for this Vietnam ape compared to, let's say the Sasquatch, which seems more narrow. Maybe that's something to do with the terrain.
Oh
It's
yeah, that's
kind of
a good
interesting.
point. Yeah, like you'd want a wider foot to help.
Terrible. That's awful.
Professional.
Very professional.
Hold on one second.
So you're gonna go with the text, huh? You're just gonna.
No, it's my work phone.
Oh, okay.
I forgot to turn it off. Let me do that real quick. I'm gonna cut this part out. when, when I let me do this. Yeah, I don't know. Were you there when they implemented the like phone system, the 3CX and the other thing, Amazon phone tree?
No.
Okay, that's what that is. So
I just remember having like the extra phone and for logging in to different devices or something like that.
yeah. Okay. Let's get back on track here. So I'll pick it back up with like you talking about its wide footprint, and then yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's a good point, Zane, is like the wide foot area would make more sense in like the jungle when you're trying to prevent like sinking down into like mud and all
Yeah.
the water. I didn't think about that when I was looking at the feet, but yeah, that would make total sense here.
I guess when you do think about the not the Yeti, but like the Sasquatch, they're more so in northwest regions. I know they've been spotted various places, but those regions are not as wet as the jungle, let's say in the Vietnam area. So,
Yeah.
maybe that's something I just spotted. I feel very smart about.
Very good. Maybe another observation since we're analyzing feet. Um, like women's feet are usually more spread out than male feet. So
Really?
maybe it's like a female
Oh, could be
footprint cast here, and these are like male North American apes. Yeah, like,
interesting.
yeah. So yeah, maybe something to do with that. I don't know. But anyway, so the communists they sent out like two expeditions in the 70s, and then like again in the 80s they sent another one, and again they only found footprints. Um, let me go to the next slide here. Okay, this footprint here is just a comparison of the one on the left is the rock ape, and the one on the right is a what's it like a human foot.
Okay.
So
Just
just
like
kind of
average
shows,
average like length of
yeah,
human foot. Okay.
yeah. So a little bit bigger, a little bit wider,
Right.
more rounded heel than what you got.
Ooh.
That is an orangutan's foot. So kind of give you an idea
Oh,
of like
wow.
an ape is like a different type of foot. They almost have like a thumb on their foot that kind of grasps branches and stuff like that. The rock ape's foot doesn't have that lower
Oh, okay.
thumb-like toe. So it's
So
not that, right?
yeah, so its anatomy is much more similar to Homo sapien.
Yeah, yeah, it's more humanoid looking. So all very weird there with the cast that they find and stuff like that. And actually, let me go. I'm gonna jump ahead of here again. Oh no. Oh, I forgot to load one of these
But
pictures here. I'll get to it though. Very professional. Very professional. Let me do this here. Well, I'll do that later. So, anyway, so we got this these cast footprints here. But let me play for you or read to you another story here from another Marine veteran. And this was an account from South Texas News. So they had a reporter interviewing one of the local guys there about his time in Vietnam, and he told his stories about his time in Vietnam. And a little portion of it kind of dealt with these rock apes. I thought it was interesting. So it's just not like some random person on the internet's email uploading it. It was an actual interview on a outlet here. So I'll just kind of pick up in the middle of the article if that's all right, and see how this
Sure.
sounds. Then this is the reporter. So the reporter's kind of talking, and then he'll talk about quoting the person. So the Marines veteran's name is Alfonso Villarreal. All right. One other time he said he was with his platoon and it was nighttime. Off in the distance, he and his comrades saw what looked like a large medicine ball moving toward them through a ravine. The object kept moving toward them until it was right up and on the end of his rifle. The Marine tapped the thing, and the thing started screaming, yelling, waving its arms all over, and running away. It was a baby rock ape, Villarreal said.
Huh.
Rock apes are indigenous to Vietnam's hills and rocky areas. Then, on top of the steep sides of the ravine came large boulders, some maybe weighing 300 to 400 pounds. The boulders were coming from the rock apes' adults. Later, the adult apes were coming down the path toward the platoon. They were dauntless. They were like gorillas, Villarreal said, and they had 4 to 5 inch fangs. We
Dang.
had to shoot them. I think there were about 17 of them, he said. The little rock ape was not among the dead rock apes. I've never seen anything like it, he said. So that's kind of like the story
Wow.
he told. Like he actually shot these things and killed them.
Right. They were just so aggressive that they had to do it.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, I mean, you think about a large ape coming at you and it's territorial.
Yeah.
They'll mess you up. Like even chimpanzees are small, much smaller than what these things are reported to be, 5 to 6 feet tall. Those things can kill a person, a
Easily.
chimpanzee. Yeah,
Right.
easily. Remember a few years back that woman had a pet one and it like tore the face off. It was like
Oh my
her or her friend or something like that.
God.
Just like just they're so strong. And that's why, like, if you scale that up, he mentioned about 300 to 400 pound boulders being like thrown down the cliffs at him. That would, yeah, okay. You think that's heavy, yeah, for a person.
Right.
But if these things are like 4 or 5 times stronger than a person is, that's not that hard for them to move, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see those accounts, like you hear those accounts. A lot of them have rock throwing and rocks, and I think that's common too with some Bigfoot sightings. They're known to like throw things at
Right.
people in the woods and stuff like that. So that's very interesting. Just like the behavior similarities, kind of overlapping with these like bipedal humanoids, or these
All over
ape.
the world too, which is
Yeah,
I feel like going to be a reoccurring theme on this episode. Like all these different mysteries, there are certain common threads throughout the world and throughout history, which is really cool.
yeah, absolutely. So we got to kind of ask ourselves then, Zane, like, what are we seeing here? What's being seen here? So, of course, it's like a lot of people might say, "Oh, well, it's easy. They're just seeing other apes in the jungle, like gibbons or orangutans."
Right.
Well, orangutans. Here's a picture of an orangutan. They don't live in Vietnam, right? They live in like Borneo, Indonesia, that region there. There was a species of orangutan that did live in Vietnam, but they died out like thousands of years ago,
Okay.
right? But also, too, they don't really have the same behaviors as you would think. These rock apes are having. They're more docile. Orangutans are, and they live in the trees. They love the trees. They stay up there. They're big, but they don't come down on the ground, and they're not aggressive. And they're usually more, not as pack moving as
Right.
these things are reported to be.
And looking at this photo too, we talked about the feet comparisons. You look at
Hmm.
this orangutan's foot; it looks like a curved hand,
Yeah,
and we look at these rock ape depictions of their feet, and it looks more like a human. So Yeah, can't imagine that they were seeing orangutans for sure. And
Yeah.
they're not when they're walking, they're not are they, I think, 5 feet? Or are they like 4 feet? They're not that tall, right?
Orangutans? No, I mean, I think maybe they might be similarly sized, like, but I mean, they don't stand up like that really. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like it's a very awkward, and I think they're. I think some of the largest males can get a couple 100 pounds. Orangutans. Guess I
On
could Google
Google,
it
it
real
says like
quick.
their average is like 4 feet if they were standing.
That was on Google, you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Yeah. So not very tall. They're kind of just built differently than what you would expect these things to be. And like you said, their feet are just totally different, and not made for walking. And that's because they live up in the trees. They're more arboreal. They love just being up there, right? So that's what they do.
Nice word choice.
Yeah.
Oreo.
Yes, I used to get zoo books. So okay, so if orangutans don't live here, then what else kind of lives in this area? You might think like, okay, gibbons, right? This is an ape. Um, so not as big or heavily framed as orangutans or gorillas or even chimpanzees. Are smaller. These things are they're lighter. They're also very arboreal. They swing around. You probably seen them. They have very long arms, and they just kind of hang out in the trees all day, right? Here's some more pictures. There's lots of different species of them, so
Okay.
kind of like get a good. You can describe these to the people, Zane.
Well, yeah, so we got like 4 different type of gibbons and, top left corner, white and black, which is kind of a I don't know if I've seen that version, kind of a cool looking version.
Hmm.
Um, One at the top right is brown, kind of the one that I thought of in my head for gibbons. Bottom left, they look kind of like more like chimpanzees or baboons, black, gray, whitish snout. They look a little bit more intimidating. And then the bottom right is just like a small black, more like a monkey like gibbon. I guess these are more similar to monkeys in a way, but I guess you call them apes. Well, are monkeys apes or
No,
no? They're
no,
different.
monkeys are not apes. So apes are different. So you got, I don't think gibbons are classified as like great apes, like your
Oh, okay.
chimpanzees or gorillas, but they are in the ape family. They don't have tails. But and they're big, a little bit bigger than your typical monkeys are. These pictures might be a little bit misleading. I think these colors are usually more a little bit yellowish or golden color, so they kind of come off a little bit more brown and white in these pictures. And the ones that you think look more like chimpanzees here, they kind of do, but they're thinner, not built as muscular. They got long, spindly arms. It's just they don't have the right description of what the accounts from the veterans are about the rock apes and stuff like that. Also, too, these things aren't very big, 2 to 3 feet tall. If they're walking around on their feet, they can walk bipedally better than most others can, and I think their ankle joints even kind of move more like humans do
Okay.
when they do walk bipedally. But again, their behavior mostly in the trees, very spindly. They're not that intimidating. Like if you saw them in the jungle, you'd be like, "Oh, what's that? Oh, it's a gibbon." It's
Yeah.
not like, "Oh my god, I got to get away from this thing. It's gonna kill me." um,
I wouldn't want to get close, but I wouldn't be as intimidated for sure.
yeah.
The top left one, he looks kind of ripped though. I'm sure they could. I'm sure they could mess you up though. Ugh.
Even lift bra.
Yeah.
I think they'd probably be more scared of you though than
Yeah.
than you'd be of them.
Right.
So that's kind of like these two candidate. Here's another one here of a gibbon. See, look at the arms; they're just so long and lanky.
Yeah.
They kind of squat down, and again, their feet got those little hand feet. Like
Yeah.
typical primates you would think of. So
It'd be pretty
they're
cool if for like 5 minutes, if you can inhabit or if you can part of a monkey's body, like a gibbon's body, and just climb around and just feel that sense of strength and freedom going through the trees. I think that'd be kind of cool. These are the thoughts I have, Josh, sometimes.
you want to be a gibbon?
For for 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
A 5 minute gibbon. Okay, well, everybody's got a dream. Zane. Maybe
Yeah, mine are
um,
weird.
good luck with that, I guess.
Thanks.
All right. So these are kind of the candidates here for what would be seen. And I don't think they kind of stack up at all. So Vietnam, let's kind of think what else might be going on here. So Vietnam has a long oral history of wild men of the forest. These are commonly called Batutut or Ngoi Rong. That's what they call these creatures. Batutut or Ngoi Rong. And they are said to walk on two legs. These are according to oral traditions of the Vietnamese people. Walk on two legs and move in small clans, and are covered completely in hair except for knees, feet, hands, and face.
Wow.
They have wide shoulders and and they're very muscled. They are there's many traditions in villages of telling stories of the forest people and encounters with them. It's all very similar to what these Marines and other veterans describe when they encounter these rock apes. So the people of Vietnam, they're very familiar with the forest. They know what's going on there. They know the difference between gibbons and even bear. I think they have some Asiatic black bears
Oh
that
wow. Okay.
are seen kind of in the area as well. But they're not the same. A bear is different than a primate. They're built differently, don't walk the same,
Right.
different feet.
They
I
kind of
think,
have more of a canine look to them, at least to me. They,
yeah, and long snouts,
yeah.
stuff. I mean, it'd still be intimidating to see a bear in the middle of the thing. But I think the bears too. They don't move in clans, right? They're not in. They're usually more isolated by themselves and stuff like that. So these are separate creatures that are scaring people out there. And also too, they report the same kind of height, 5 to 6 feet tall, right? So I did find this thing too, and let me see. I'm going to share this. Let's see. Let me. I have to share my screen real quick. Okay, there you go. You see this thing?
Yes.
All right. So what this is it's a protection certificate signed by General Vo Nguyen Giap in 1982. And what this was, and he was a general in the in the
Viet Cong.
yeah, no, I think he was in the Communist Party. So he was like
Okay.
a general in the because this was after Vietnam.
It was the Viet Cong. Was that like their Marines or Army?
Yeah, that was like their military.
Just their military? Okay.
Yeah, in general. So this particular thing was signed in 1982 and prohibited scientific research groups from hunting certain types of creatures like birds and whatever. But specifically, it says that they're not allowed to hunt or kill the tall orangutans, which would be considered forest men, right? The men of the forest. So that's kind of like an interesting distinction to make, like a tall orangutan. Like if you think it was orang, they would just say orangutan, right? But orangutans don't live in Vietnam, right? So, but they call them tall orangutan. Now, orangutan means person of the forest in the Malay language.
Okay.
So I think there's some ties in people that are, more linguistically inclined than I am. I think there's ties with the Malay language or Malay language to Vietnam traditionally. Like it's not what they speak there, but I think over the course of centuries there was influence of that language being there. So the word orangutan, I think, is something in their vernacular. Anyways, so this is what the certificate says. Um, I'm not sure. I got this from like a Wikipedia, like a Vietnamese Wikipedia. So I was kind of diving deep on the internet to
Yeah.
find these type of things. Um, and only second to my speaking of Vietnamese language is my reading of Vietnamese language, not not as strong.
You didn't
So
practice with Duolingo before all this? Like,
no, I did not, and I didn't have my translation what do you call it? Translation
Google Translate.
dictionary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty
So
cool. That it's like an official military document that specifically, you know, describes this creature in a way. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's
yeah,
like
I
proof,
thought
proof
it's
right there.
you don't find a lot of official government things on these things. It's just not found. But we already have the Vietnamese sending expeditions, the professors and stuff that are like knowledgeable people for them, and not like just like somebody in the forest saying it. It's credible. They sent them out. They also had that particular document from their chain of command saying, hey, if you see these things, don't mess with them, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. Now I do have one more, I guess, anecdote, perhaps, um, about rock apes. So this comes from the Council of Foreign Relations. Zane, you know anything about the Council of Foreign Relations? You ever heard of them?
The Vietnamese council,
No,
or is
this
this an
is
international body?
it's an international body.
Okay. No, I don't.
Okay.
But I made it
W-
sound good by saying international body, so I'm
yeah.
okay with that.
Well, it's actually more U.S. based, but they do focus on foreign policy and international relations. So there's a lot of conspiracy stuff tied to them, and it's probably a different episode. But think of things like the Bilderberg groups and stuff like
Yeah.
that. These weird government, semi-government type of things that influence the world on a stage, right? So that's
Sure.
the Council on Foreign Relations has this kind of reputation. So we'll get to them eventually. But anyway,
I'm
so on
sure.
their what's that?
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. So anyways, what they had on their website was a little article that they wrote, or at least it was on their site about the first U.S. combat troops arriving in Vietnam, and it was written in 2015. And so they're talking about the first troops setting foot in Vietnam, and they're highlighting an author named Philip Caputo. And Philip Caputo, he was a Marine as well. So he was in Vietnam when it first started. He was one of the first ones on the ground. He became an author after. So he wrote a story about, his time in Vietnam. So this particular excerpt was from one of his books. All right. And he describes arriving in Vietnam in his book as such. I did reach out to him to kind of clarify if this was something that he was just using as like a literary device. Although I think it's weird that you would use this particular, you'll see why. And it is a literary device, and maybe he's got more stories to back it up. I don't know. I did reach out, but he didn't get back to me. Wah,
Oh,
wah.
well, hopefully it does. That'd be cool.
Yeah. So here's what it says. It says. Their entrance into the war zone had been the stuff of which comic operas are made. Like the Marines in World War II newsreels, they had charged up the beach and were met not by machine guns and shells, but by the mayor of Da Nang and a crowd of schoolgirls. The mayor made a brief welcoming speech, and the girls placed flowered wreaths around the Marines' necks. Garland, like ancient heroes, then marched off to seize Hill 327, which turned out to be occupied only by rock apes, gorillas instead of gorillas, as the joke went, who did not consent to the intrusion, of their upright and heavily armed cousins. So that's what he wrote about it.
It's very specific.
Yeah, so it's like a weird point to make about these rock apes, something that's not really that common, for people to talk about. It's not like it's in the vernacular, like you're saying, like oh, that's like King Kong size pizza or something. It's not it's a weird thing. So he says gorillas, like the ones found in the Congo, instead of gorillas, like the fighting people, gorillas, right? So that's what he was saying in the reference there. So these
Okay.
things were like gorillas, not the fighting
Fighting
gorillas.
gorilla. Right.
Yeah. So I thought, wow, that's an interesting thing, and it's highlighted on the Council of Foreign Relations website. We'll put these in the links as well
Yeah.
for you. So that's kind of
Two kind of like government official documents that
yeah.
are
Well, they're not
do
government,
exist.
but yeah, they're
Well, okay.
they're a think tank. They're a think tank.
Think tank.
Yeah, but they're involved in government things, right?
Sure.
But yeah, so that was all within the context of the first Marines that went into Vietnam. So very interesting there. So I guess kind of the question would be like, why aren't we finding more remains and stuff like that of these creatures supposedly in Vietnam? So I guess kind of an interesting point of Vietnam is that it's a jungle, right? It's a rainforest. They get 78 inches of rainfall a year, which is a lot of water coming
Yeah.
down, and things in that environment do not last long. They
No.
get decayed, eaten by other animals during
Yeah.
thick vegetation. Things grow over them. Like, you're not finding things there. It's very difficult. So even finding the footprints that they found are kind of miraculous, just because
Sure.
they happen to, I guess, be on trails and stuff like that that people walk by and they see them. So it's kind of a hindrance to why you don't see more things. And in fact, Vietnam, they're always discovering more animals in Vietnam. I think the most recent large-bodied animal was found in Vietnam in the 90s. It was some kind of like forest ox. They called it, I think, like the Vietnamese unicorn. I
Oh,
didn't put it in my notes, but let's see, if you look that up, Zane, on Google, Vietnamese unicorn, it'll tell you what kind of creature. It's kind of like a bovine family type of thing, but it's pretty large bodied, and that thing has been running around in Vietnam, kind of smaller numbers, but they just kind of rediscovered it in the 90s or whatever.
I'm trying to think about how to describe it. It's just very small. It looks kind of like the antelope you see on the African plains, but smaller because it lives in the jungle. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, but a couple 100 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah, so right, what is it called? Did you have a name for it?
I just typed in Vietnamese unicorn, and I also got some very vivid uh, color illustrations too.
All right.
I think it's
Uh,
called Salo. Salo. That's what it's called.
Salo. Yeah, let me see. I can maybe share a picture of that. Do, 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 do. I don't think that's what I was talking about.
Okay.
Maybe I got my metaphors mixed up. I'm gonna have to let me just Google it. Here. You tell the people what your initial thoughts on like the jungle and creatures being found in there and stuff like that.
All I know, what I've been thinking about this whole episode, is that these these soldiers, Vietnamese or American, they're already dealing with the stress of war in itself, and the fact they have to deal with these kind of surprising, terrifying creatures that are man height and they're aggressive just makes this war theater even more terrifying. And like fighting in the jungle is one of the hardest theaters you can fight in, if not the hardest. And I just that would just suck. Like it would just if I was a Marine, I'm already encountering so many horrible things. Maybe I've been in the bush for a long time, and then all of a sudden you have apes that are throwing rocks at me, charging me, bearing fangs that are inches long. Um, I would not be happy. So it would be scary.
Yeah, I mean, definitely would be. And I don't know, like I think like encounters like these, especially from really remote areas, from a time period where people I, weren't inclined to silliness as much as I guess today you would
Yeah,
say. It makes me think that there's a lot more credibility behind this, especially because thick jungle, it's hard to discover things, and it's still a lot of isolation. Like, you're not there putting eyes on things, you don't know what's there. And Vietnam could support a creature like this, right? And that's a big thing, is like, um, do areas support these sightings of Loch Ness monster or whatever? Can it live, can it survive there? Well,
right.
they absolutely could in Vietnam. There's lots of food there, they got lots of cover. There's other creatures that are.
Especially if it's vegetarian or if it's omnivore, then
Mhm.
it could obviously survive off plants. And there's at least, I mean, apes in general, they tend to eat bugs and stuff, so they could easily survive out there.
Yeah, they have definitely the physiology to survive out there, and I think that there were accounts I read some that they did from the villagers in Vietnam talking about when they would come into like the villages and stuff like that. Like when they would see them, sometimes they would be trying to tear into the middle of some rattan plants to get at the insides to eat those and stuff like that. There were some tales of them maybe capturing people and eating them, but I think that might be more attributed to people going missing in the jungle and
Yeah,
them just kind of attributing it to, oh, there was this creature was around here recently, it must have been that.
right. It's
So
easy to disappear in the jungle. It doesn't have to be the ape that got you. Like,
yeah, exactly. So things like that are seem more credible to me, especially Vietnam. It's not as built up and industrial as places
yeah,
out here. So I think it has a high credibility or high probability of it. It's possible at least. And there's other creatures out there in Indonesia and stuff like that. That similar type creatures that they say they're seeing that they're not orangutan, but it's this ape type of thing. Maybe that's another episode. The
yeah.
orang pendek is one of them.
Interesting.
Very interesting. So that's kind of my story. And just to kind of recap with it, yeah, the solo, that was what I was talking about. It goes by
Okay.
another name too, the Vu Quang. It's like a bovid type of creature. So,
I think I
um,
do remember that story. It was this kind of a cool looking little deer-like creature and all that. Vietnamese unicorn.
yeah, or the Sola is probably easier for people.
Yeah,
Uh,
to Google.
Saola. So you can look it up yourself. They are a little smaller, like Zane, you were saying, they're a
Yeah.
little smaller, but they can get a couple 100 pounds, I think.
Okay. All right. That's
So
bigger than I thought.
yeah, and they're kind of Vietnam. They're in that area, in the forest too, just like these things would be. So that's the story of the Rock Apes. So if you guys, what do you think of it? Do you think it's something that's possible? Have you seen it? Do you have a story? Let us know. Shoot us an email, hey guys at telltaleguys.com. If you guys have something, if it's not even related to that, you got some strange creature you seen, let us know. That'd be cool. But Zane, you got any related material for us?
Yes. So we're gonna go to our favorite site to kind of close out the episode. So I'll go ahead and share. Um, and like one more thing before I do that, what I think
Oh
is
yeah.
cool about this too is that we'll probably go into various cryptids along this podcast journey, but this one seems the most likely to actually exist out of all the others that exist out there. So I think that's pretty interesting.
Oh well, since you brought it up, Zane, let's do this. So
Yeah,
maybe since it's more of like the Bigfoot type of creature, let's say you rank these couple on in the likelihood of most likely to least likely. Okay,
yeah.
so you got the rock ape, you got Bigfoot, you got the Yeti, and let's say I forget what they're called, some South American type of Bigfooty creature.
I would say rock ape most likely to exist. Bigfoot next, um, and then probably that South American one, and Yeti last,
Okay.
just because it's so extreme in those in Nepal and all that. So uh, yeah, I feel like this rock ape sounds like it could be out there, and it makes sense that it'd be hard to find, even if they have like current expeditions, because it's so hard to get in there. And then if any of these creatures die, they they deteriorate quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I concur with your rankings. That sounds good to me.
Yeah. Um, well, let's go
DJ
into
time.
DJ time. Let's go into Suno, our favorite AI program that can play music just off a based off a few keywords. So I'm going to present, share screen, share. All right. So we got Jungle Primate Roar Cry. Now this is kind of I was trying to go with like CCR, got Credence
Okay.
Clearwater Revival type thing.
Yeah.
So let's see how this goes. Here we go.
In the shadows where the jungle weaves, Rock Apes howl on the silence trees. Men in suits, they ignore the cries, while the jungle burns and another dies. Helicopters hum as they slice the air. Innocence lost, but they don't care.
I like that lyric right there.
That's clever.
Built on the ancient ground, Rock Apes scream, but they make no sound.
Ooh, I like that.
Here we go.
And the jungle fades. Rock Apes morning while the fires blaze. Peace and chaos tangled in the vines. Forgotten creatures lost in the light.
All right, so not
I like
exactly,
it.
not exactly CCR, but as kind of close as I get to it.
I think if I made a movie about Vietnam and encountering rock apes, I would have that in there as a backdrop music. You know,
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
yeah, that was a good one. It kind of reminds me how the first Predator movie, they were all in Vietnam, right? When they got attacked by.
No, they were in South America.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah,
But similar place, and they're being attacked by a crazy creature. So
yeah.
it remind me of that.
Oh, you ever hear about the Glimmerman sightings?
No, I do not know what it is.
Okay, that's definitely an episode for some other time. But it's kind of, they describe it as like the predator. You know, when the predator goes invisible,
Yeah.
and it has like, you can kind of see people describe seeing that kind of outline in places and stuff like that. So it would be terrifying. But Rock Apes also terrifying. So everything is terrifying out there. Be scared. Be very scared.
Especially in the jungle.
Yeah.
I've had a good opportunity to hike in some really cool jungles, really in the Caribbean, but they're breathtaking, but they're also really hard and dangerous and not easy to live in. And I'm sure there are all sorts of crazy animals you encounter. And I feel sorry for these U.S. service members and the Viet Cong. I'm sure the Viet Cong are probably more normal. They're probably more used to these type of things, but that would not be fun, and probably one of the worst wars we've ever experienced.
Oh yeah. Definitely not. So I'm glad it was before my time. That's for sure.
Yeah,
But
sure.
you know, if I ever get out there, I'll definitely look for a rock ape. So,
Yeah.
anything else, Zane, for the people?
No, that's it. I guess we'll look forward to our next episode. We'll put our hats together, our sun hats, perhaps, and we'll think of something really fun. This was a good one, kind of dealing into the kind of cryptid territory, perhaps.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so all our fans out there, friends, family, go check us out on Telltale Guys for all the socials, all the podcast platforms. You can find us there. But yeah, Josh, you want to sign us off?
All right. Yeah, I just say, give us a like, share it. If you don't like it, share it anyways. Maybe somebody else will like it. All right.
Yeah, and if you don't, you'll get a rock thrown at you by an ape.
Yeah, not me, but someone else.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Yeah.
It's on and Johnny show every day, talking about apes that rock the bay. Vietnam jungle stories told, phones ringing, cold unfolds. Josh's phone rang in the show, forgot his slide, but life still flow. Monkey tales and podcast dreams, hilarious as it seems. Oh, rock apes all around. Oh, laughter's the sound. Josh and Zane under trees, podcast full of funny degrees. Rain had a cold but pushed through, with every word his passion grew. Rock apes swinging to the beat, rhythms wild and sweet. Zane had a cold but pushed through, with every word his passion grew. Rock apes swinging to the beat, rhythms wild and sweet. In the jungle echoes fly, pod stories touch the sky. Rock apes dance by moonlight through the air, full in the night. Oh, rock apes all around. Oh, around. Oh, laughter's the sound. Josh and Zane under trees, podcast full of fun.